have about the ability of liberalism to accommodate Aristotelian political learning. And I'm going to just kind of skip through this quickly because I want to leave time for questions. But the basic idea is this. Liberalism takes itself as the answer to the question of how can free and equal people live with one another, right, as free and equal people. And the answer liberalism gives is, well, they're going to live under rules set up by a state that will keep their liberty as great as possible, and those rules should be applied impartially and universally to all people. But as soon as that's kind of the liberal response, the worry here is that liberalism sets up the state, or sets up some notion of a sovereign, in the position of an umpire, who's going to take all of our conflicts we have with one another, and it's going to set itself up as just an adjudicator, as someone who, as a powerful entity who's going to implement the rules and keep the game fair. But it's not going to intervene in who's the winner or the loser in the games that we play with one another in society, right? Because liberalism, as I understand it, doesn't want to be involved in that kind of thing. But as soon as it does that, what it ends up doing is saying, look, the umpire figure, the sovereign, the Leviathan, the state, has to be far more powerful and be far more respected than any of the contestants in any of the games we play with one another. And as a result of that, all honor and all the idea of political honor shifts right up to the sovereign, to the state, to the Leviathan. And all the honor that might accrue to people based on whether they've won or the dishonor they accrued by losing in any particular game, in competition we have with them, that ends up just seeming like nothing. It seems like a child's play, by comparison to the greatness of the state. And I go through it in Hobbes, it explicitly says this. Look at this last quotation on the bottom of the left-hand side of the handout there, where Hobbes says, as to the power, so also the honor of the sovereign ought to be greater than that of any or all of the subjects. For in the sovereignty is the fountain of honor. The dignities of lord, earl, duke, and prince are his creatures. As in the presence of the master, the servants are equal without any honor at all. So are the subjects in the presence of the sovereign. And though they shine some more, some less, yeah, maybe one or few we also do, when they are out of his sight, yet in his presence they shine no more than the stars in the presence of the sun, right? So serving as a this or that public official, winning this or that competitive election, doing this or that, that's nothing. Compared to sovereignty, that's where all the honor goes. That's where all the superiority goes. So, in other words, Aristotelian honor just gets kind of not only transcended by the liberal state, but it gets crushed. It's something that's just kind of child's play, just kind of greasy politics, not the kind of thing that really deserves your esteem. Final point. So what? Who cares? I have a question. Someone who studies ancient philosophy, I think it's just all Steve, how do you use that? Who cares? And you might, that's reasonable. Liberalism is clearly the winner of political philosophies. It defines the aspirations of all contemporary nation states of the West, I think. So, okay, so Steve, you've come along, you've said liberalism doesn't fit and it can't accommodate with Aristotelian honor. Sucks for Aristotelian honor. You know, why don't we just write the obituary for Aristotelian honor and get on with it? It lost in the battle of ideas. But let me end with this. Has it? And let me suggest to you that our contemporary democracy, the way it actually works, is basically an Aristotelian honor system. And so just notice the following points. Democracy means rule by the people, and in a contemporary large-scale approach, what does it mean for the people to rule? It means that they go to the ballot box and they cast votes in competitive elections. Notice, though, they don't vote for policies alone, right? The candidates, we don't get a set of white papers and we vote among the white papers. We vote among people. We're voting for one person over another person. not just policies. And that means we're evaluating their characters, their personalities, or to go Aristotelian on you, their virtues, right? So we're esteeming people on the basis of their virtue, right, for our political community. Sounds like Aristotelian political honor. And lo and behold, Aristotle thought honors just go to a few people in our community. Well, and so too, the number of people in our elective system. The number of winners in our elections are very few compared to the number of people that are in society. And notice too, that when in elections, notice what's going on, one of the basic strategies you use is that you try to show that your opponent is not worthy of the office, and that you are worthy of the office. And that's a very Aristotelian kind of idea. The office itself has honor, and my opponent here couldn't live up to it. And that's a classic virtue competition, a classic competition built, I think, on the idea that the office itself is a kind of honor that only certain kind of human beings should be able to hold. So, at the end of the day, I think it is a problem, maybe, for liberalism if it can't accommodate Aristotelian political honor, if, in fact, our competitive systems in democracies are indeed very Aristotelian. Liberalism wouldn't be saying anything about this important part of our political lives. All right, awesome. Let's stop there. Yeah.
Thanks very much. So, yeah, do you conceive of like it in the way you're using liberalism? You know, in a liberal utopia, like people would be almost like how in academia, right? Like, okay, I'll serve as the chair. Okay, I'll serve as the dean.
Right.
Which is sort of like you're almost stepping out of the fun part of academia, which is publishing a lot and building your own prestige career or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's to be the drudgery of administration, which they have to pay you more for because it sucks so bad.
Yeah.
Because you lose honor, you have to pay you more to incentivize you. Right. Like in the liberal view, is that how like you think like that they would conceive of elected officials, whereas in the real practice it's much more disciplinary.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, and first of all, now you've made me self-conscious because you've made it sound as if the reason I became chair was out of some idea that I'd be winning honor that way.
No, you're just the opposite.
Right, no, I know. No, I was just saying, me personally, this isn't a desperate attempt to make myself feel important. Yeah, so I think that's right. I mean, here's the way I would put it. I mean, Aristotle recognizes, he thinks there are two ways to use your rational soul like a virtuoso. There's a lot of ways to use your rational soul which aren't virtue worthy. Two ways to, as a philosopher, right, or in the political sphere, right? And I think in academia we definitely have the idea of using your rational soul in the philosophical way, in the practical way, and valuing that. So Aristotle, I think, would be okay with that. The part he would not be okay with would be the idea that when you're doing the political work, that's not drudgery at all. It's a way of interacting with your natural equals in a way where you're having to use your repertoire well. And I think partly what's happened maybe is that the Hobbesian kind of way of thinking about the state has made it seem like the only people who are in any kind of political relationship with one another are just functionaries. It is just drudgery. You are, at the end of the day, not no more important than anyone else. You're not exercising your rational soul in any way that's more virtuous than anyone else. You're just showing up and doing your job. It's just drudgery, and that's the thing I think Aristotle would disagree violently with Hobbes. Is that no, it's not just sovereignty that has the honor. Becoming a governor, becoming a representative, it's a huge thing, and doing that well. It's not that you're just doing a job. Those jobs are political in the sense that you have to interact with other human beings in a way that requires an incredible amount of emotional development and dexterity as well as intelligence. I mean, I think, maybe to sum all that up, a political job is different than other jobs in that it calls on the totality of what you are as a human being in a different way. And I kind of alluded to this in my question to Stephen. I think we have some bad faith about this in contemporary society. I think we want to think of a politician as just doing another job. You're just it's any old job. And I think we all know that, oh no, it's really not. Picking someone who's going to rule over you is not the same as hiring someone just to do a job. There's something different about that.